Good afternoon, friends. Well, I'm going to jump into the subject immediately because I have problems with time always, especially when it comes to the subject of trauma or meaning in life, which is the area of concentration for me. I mean, research concentration for me. So one of the main challenges for this speech and some similar speeches in the past for me was not about what to say, it was really about what not to say. So I have to try to avoid the parts that can be quite time-consuming. We are going to talk about searching for meaning in suffering. As you all know, as professionals here, being the center of thought for Viktor Frankl, one of the pioneers in existential psychology, and overall the center of thought for existential psychology nowadays, for today's world of psychology. Well, the whole idea, let me just remind you about that, it's very much well known. The whole idea is that when a human being goes through the suffering, the best secure way to come out of this suffering, even more powerful, is trying to find a meaning into this suffering. In other words, when you go through a pain and you feel the suffering coming into you, you must, or somebody else must, as a therapist, help you to find a meaning somehow into this suffering. Your perception needs to become meaningful about this experience that you are going through. Then you can survive much better, and based on the nature of that meaning, you can even come out more powerful. So the whole idea is that when we are going through a trauma, when we are going through a negative experience in life, depends on the intensity of that. It can crush you down completely, and again, it has different levels. But it can crush you down completely or somehow, and it can stay with you for the rest of your life. Or the other path for that is you come out of it more powerful, stronger, even more fulfilled sometimes. There is no third condition usually. You can either go that way or this way. In what category you stay makes a difference. And the whole try in psychology, or the attempt that we make as clinical psychologists when we see patients who go through the suffering, and as you know, those who come for psychotherapy, they are the ones who perceive themselves being someone as a victim of some difficult difficulties in life, some traumatic events in life, and then they need help for that. Therefore, they feel or they think or they present to us how much they are suffering. Our job is help them. And from what we understand in the area of psychology, especially the new existential point of view, this is the best path to help them. Therefore, we can help them to come out of the experience even more powerful. Otherwise, the other side is nervous system being crushed down completely. It cannot leave you without any influence. Never. This or that. So the big question is this. How come? What is the difference when someone goes through the pain and come out of it this way and someone doesn't? For this speech, I'm going to present only some factors or the mechanism of the whole system when we go through this experience, and somehow we can all together find an answer to this question. What is the difference? And don't forget, psychology only addresses how. We cannot really say why. We stay away from it. Well, spiritual thoughts and some religious orientations or school of thoughts can answer that question much better. But we stay with how for the time being. Again, going back to this big question, I must, to emphasize before anything else, is that there's a difference between pain and suffering. meaning that you can experience the highest level of pain, but you still don't suffer. A good example of that is a mother who goes through the labor. She feels the highest level of physical suffering, at least, of course, physical suffering, physical pain, I'm sorry, but she does not feel that she's suffering, right? So pain is different than suffering. In order to answer this question, there is a definition that says suffering can be equal to psychological pain more than physical pain. It is not a good definition, at least in my mind, my humble mind, but it is a better explanation for that. Suffering is equal to, again, I have to emphasize that in psychology we really don't have any definite definitions for anything. But here is what the researchers are presenting, that suffering means endurance, or as they call, there's another statement that I like when I read it, other than endurance for suffering, was bearing a pain. So it is not the pain, it is about the process of bearing the pain, and it's somehow positive. This is a general definition for suffering, but there's a specific definition for suffering. Specific definition for suffering is when someone goes through a painful experience, but at the perception of this person somehow injures or insults the sense of integrity, the sense of self, the sense of integrity. Then the patient, I'm sorry, I'm a clinical psychologist, I keep saying the patient, I shouldn't say, the individual feels the suffering. So the perception that brings that sense of damage to yourself or the integrity of yourself creates the sense of suffering, usually. Okay, therefore, clinician needs to really focus on that part. It doesn't matter how much the experience is painful and how much the patient is coming to you with all these stories about life being quite unbearable and so many problems are happening, and of course they are usually prepared to come to you with all these stories and tell you how much it is difficult. But the focus of the clinician at that moment when you are hearing the stories is not about the intensity of what is going on in the life of the patients, which is important, but that is not the focus for us. The focus for us is what is the perception of that person of that event and how these experiences are affecting the sense of self and that integrity in this patient. Then we are able to find an avenue to help the patient. So this is usually the whole idea in general. I'm going to jump into a definition of, or some more explanations into the positive side of this story, meaning that what happens when someone going through a painful experience and come out of it even more powerful. I'm going to stay in that without going some other places, which is plenty, by the way, in this area. Well, the first part, as I mentioned, sense of self, integrity. When you experience a traumatic event, when you, something is happening quite unfair, when a situation is out of control, you cannot control outside of you, and it's about the destiny, it is about the betrayal, all of those. By the way, the traumatic events are perceived more damaging when it comes through human being to you, not through the natural disasters. So we stay with that even more. Meaning your loved ones, someone else, people don't do that to you as opposed to the natural disasters. You go there, you experience that trauma, you experience that pain. Sense of integrity being damaged. How? Well, when you experience something negative, of course, all negative feelings comes to you: sense of anger, sense of revenge, sense of depression, hopelessness, helplessness. All of those attack you, and it does attack everybody. The most powerful human being in this world. The feeling comes, and you cannot argue with feelings. Everybody have it, sense it, especially when they go through traumatic events and painful, psychological, painful experiences. As soon as you have a chance, by yourself or by the help of someone else, find the meaning into that experience. The sense of suffering for that experience, regardless of all the pains you have already experienced, comes down tremendously, even up to the zero, and after that it goes up, meaning that you even become more powerful. Let me use an example for you. I'm a Baha'i. I don't know how much have you heard about the persecution going on in Iran at the present time, and I'm going to use a couple of examples from what is going on in this country as a good live example happening in today's world. And of course it also has a very special connection to my heart, because for 18 years after the revolution I was there, I experienced that myself, and I was witness to that. I had the honor of being witness to so many of these experiences that did bring the empowerment as we speak, through unbearable experiences of traumas and problems. So they are good examples for me as a man, not as an individual, as a researcher as well, because the resource for me is reliable, and it's happening in today's world. Therefore, I'm going to use that example so that I can convey my feelings to you even better. A big part of this persecution is about the deprivation of education for young students. Recently, we have been hearing news about that. The general idea is that the students are deprived of education because of their religion in Iran, because of their spiritual beliefs in Iran. So they write they are Baha'i, they are out of the university, they cannot even get in. Well, I was one of them myself a long time ago. And right now it is intensifying quite significantly in a way of all the responsible people in that institution that is started develop to compensate for this deprivation of education for the students, meaning that they created a university, what they call underground university, in order to help the students to find their way to higher education somehow. That is also right now under attack, and the responsible administrative clerics and professors and even some students are in prison because of that, because of studying. So you can see how much the injustice is creating that sense of being traumatized in all different ways for a group of young fellows who want to study, who want to be educated, the basic right, and they are deprived of that just because of prejudice. Going back to our story, a student is sitting there, there is an application, and they give you the application and they ask you to write whether you're a Baha'i or not. At that moment, you have to decide whether you want to sacrifice your whole entire future education to say, yes, I am a Baha'i, I'm sorry, lie that you are a Muslim. There is a question. If you write that you are a Muslim, you can have everything. They give you even advantages, and you can go into the university and you can have your future, so-called. And if you write the truth, you are a Baha'i, just by name. It doesn't matter what Baha'i is, what is the belief system. But you tell the truth, you're out of the university and you're deprived of education. At that moment, of course, the sense of anger, the sense of depression, the sense of helplessness, fear, anxiety, everything rushes into your being, right? I'm just using this as an example. But two things happen in this mechanism. One is you have to decide as a human being to choose to lie with the complete freedom at that moment. And come up with the meaning of this decision somehow for yourself. The meaning of that is this. Okay, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to stay out of the university, and I love education, and I am an A student. I love the education, but I am a human being. I do not want to lie about what do I believe. And this belief is nothing but my dream and wish for humankind being in peace and oneness of mankind. So the meaning of this belief is this much important for me and matched with my humanistic beliefs, and this much I am attached to it by heart, and I'm in love with that, and I don't want to lie about that. You start analyzing, and thanks God, for the first time in the human history of injustice, I must say, they give this choice to you. Usually in other conditions and other countries throughout the history, they don't give you choice. You are black, you are a woman, therefore you're out of the, you're deprived of the right, but this one they give you the choice. So there is a time for a young fellow sitting there to decide and find a meaning. As soon as they find a meaning, what happens to the sense of integrity and sense of self? Truly, this is the mechanism of that, right? And the judge, or the, whatever you want to call it, the Islamic guard or whoever sitting in front of you is insisting so much and is trying to attack you different ways, to insult you and to attack you, to make you recant and change your mind. Up to the level of losing their own temper and control. And they can't. Here is you're a spy. If you do this, this is going to happen to you, blah, 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 all of those scenes that we can imagine. But I really want you as a clinician to look at this scene and see whose sense of integrity is being crushed down, whose sense of self, and the focus in life, which is in the mind of perhaps that perpetrator, is this is what is right in my mind. It needs to go that way. I am raised this way. I have been told all the way through that this is the path of God. I must make him or her recant and save her. And he couldn't. And you see this student smiling, very calm as a matter of fact sometimes, because she already found the meaning into it. And that 0 point is going up, so the empowerment has started happening. For the other one, however, it's losing the color, and you see it. Therefore, you can, and we have seen so many examples of that, and then as a group, of course, they have lost so much. 4 generations, 30 years of resistance for this specific problem for the youth in Iran, in this country. But none of them, and this happened again about those professors who were also arrested and imprisoned still even. Asking them, you have to stop helping the students. You have to stop teaching them. You have to stop being involved in this university. Because the students, through these 30 years, they came up with the idea of opening a university of themselves. And professors devoted their times, they volunteered their times to teach them and help with this very, very highest level of humanistic activity, and do it. So the professor in the prison being asked to stop doing this, and he says no. What I'm doing is not wrong. What I'm doing is matched with what I believe is true. I'm a professor. I have a mission. As a human being, I'm going to stay with it. Sense of integrity, sense of self. What happens to it? Being in the prison, even thinking and knowing that there is a danger of even being killed and executed because of this. We have seen examples of that. They still say no. And they come out of it absolutely even more powerful. If this stays, if they go through it, if they survive through it. And so many different interviews and talk that I had the honor of seeing them and talking to them. It's amazing when they you see them, how peaceful they are, how calm they are. The other sense that they have, the second category of this process is in fact about the mission of human being. So the sense of self connected to the mission that a human being has. Everybody who goes through a painful experiences, if you have organized your life, it's not a good word, but if you have a way of thinking and believing in which you are able to have a mission as a human being in this world, and you believe that the mission you have stays beyond and above this world, which means power, wealth, fame, name. These are not bad, by the way. It's good to have them. But something beyond them and above this exists for human being. If you're able to keep that and adopt that in your entire life and deeply in your heart and in your spirit, then you're the one who are able to go through the most traumatic experience, which usually attacks the sense of losing the power, the sense of losing the wealth, the sense of losing the advantages, the sense of losing respect, even outside respect, not inside. All of these, do you remember I said the perception of these are bringing the suffering, right? So when you have a mission, you're able to go through all of them, although as a human being you can sense it in the beginning, but that mission stays beyond that. A good example of that, let me use another example of this sense of mission. I always think that the human being in this world, this is a very interesting story. In different recent experiences, I was able to be confronted with that. One of them was the Hugo. Have you seen movie Hugo? Please do. It's a beautiful movie, just recently on the screen. This little boy is going through all different painful experiences in life. And then towards the end, he says, the whole story is that the world is like a clock, and inside of this clock, there are some tools that are attached to each other in a very, very organized way. There is a system. And each of us are, although small part of the system, but we must be there. So, and he said that I want to believe that I'm not the spare part. I am part of this system, although small, but without me, the clock may not work. Therefore, I am going to do my mission as a human being. And it was very powerful. It stayed with me and my husband. We talked about that. To me, this was the highlight of this movie. My daughter-in-law also is an artist. Her whole paintings, if you look at it, it's all about that. I mean, she sees the world as a beautiful, very big, colorful world. And then she paints whatever human being is involved in different activities, very small, but quite significant. You see it in the painting. So beautiful philosophy of life, that the human being, no matter how small, but she or he has a mission in this world, and that mission makes us significant in this world. So the sense of mission, I can't help myself not to use this example again about the Baha'i communities when I think about mission in life. There was a physician who was arrested in Iran because he was a Baha'i. In the prison, he was a surgeon, ophthalmologist, and a very good surgeon. One day they called him outside of the prison, asking him that he needs to go to the hospitals, to the prison's hospital, because one of the guards, revolutionary guards, were there needing help, huge help. I was almost blind through one of these attacks or whatever, something happened to him. And they knew that he is the best in town, or in that town. He was very well known, the prisoner, a high prisoner, a physician. Physician went in, he did the surgery, he did the operation, and he went out of his way to stay up the entire night. And in the morning, when this pastor, this revolutionary guard, was the time to open his bandage, the bandage from his eyes, he opened the bandage and he looked at the prisoner, who is his doctor now, and he was shocked. He said, "Did you know me when you did this? Had you recognized me when you did this?" The physician said, "Of course, yes, I did." He said, "I was the guard who arrested you, who beat you up in front of your children and put you in the prison. You knew this, and now you did this to me? You cured my eyes?" Well, his response was quite obvious. Well, of course, the security guard lost his temper at that time, saying that, "I wish you would use this knife, the surgery knife, to cut my throat and heart rather than curing my eyes, so that I wouldn't see this moment." Can you tell me who suffered? Really, in this example, who really and truly suffered? Absolutely. Why? The physician had a mission in this world, and that was curing. No matter what, who is there, even doing it more, when you know that your mission and your values are being tested. So, mission, having a mission in this world and focusing on that as a human being, in the hardest moment of your life can help you. The most difficult moment of your life, which is considered unbearable for you. But if you stay focused on your mission as a human being, like this example, you are the winner and survivor, and way more powerful than the one who is on the surface on power, like that judge or security guard. Well, the third category of what causes us to come out of this experience, again, even more powerful from what I read, is the sense of imagination. When we go through painful, I don't mention suffering because now we know that the meaning is different. When you go through pain, psychological specifically, physical, we knew that has nothing to do with suffering that much. But psychological pain, when you go through that, your sense of imagination practices so well and gets empowered, and even comes out in the way that you cannot even experience and you cannot even have it during the ordinary, peaceful, comfortable time of your life. It's very interesting. As I said, psychology cannot tell us why, but it does happen. So many life examples are there. Aristotle says that the human brain has 3 sections. One is memory, second section is logical mind, Third section is imagination. 3 sections in the brain, according to Aristotle. Well, memory, we all know. Logical thought. Aristotle says that the logical thought can process and function much better when there is an order in life. So, everything is on order, everything is going well, and okay, you have ability to concentrate and get some organized information in order and process it by your logical mind. And then so many scientific results, everything can come out of it, and you do need order for going through logical way of processing and logical mind. Imagination, however, comes out of disorder. Very interesting. Yeah, I love this when I read it about Aristotle. The whole statement is that the order is the pleasure of logical thought, and disorder is the blight of imagination. Meaning that when you go through chaos in life, when everything goes out of order and you experience pain, especially psychological pain, your imagination goes way up. The life story of Ernest Hemingway, Victor Hugo, Beethoven. The best creative masterpieces usually came through the time that they went through Van Gogh. They went through this huge breaking down and disorder in life. Well, sometimes I ask my husband, why are you this much anxious? And it's not really that much, it's not a big deal. Please, calm down, be in peace. He's also an artist. He explains, you know what, I feel like I'm going into the labor, like a woman giving birth. So without all these pains that you are witnessing me, I cannot get to the new idea. And usually it comes out of, and I can sense it. After reading this story, I say, okay, so go ahead. Just suffer. when it needs to give birth to a new idea, why not? But that's the whole idea, and that's very true. Imagination does come out of disorder. When we read the life story of those in prison or going through different sufferings and psychological pains, they explain to you. In my mind, I think one of the main reasons for that is that the victim, or the one, I hate to use the word victim, because as we saw from the examples I used, they are really not victims. But when an individual goes through even unbearable conditions of life and very painful, of course the reality is very painful, they have to get themselves out of reality. This is even the natural defense systems of human body and brain. That they use different, even that side of you becomes stronger and more powerful, just like your immune system for physical problems. For psychological problems, the immune system is this, makes you or gives you the ability to detach yourself from reality because the reality is very painful and you cannot tolerate. So it takes you out of reality. Therefore, this is why Viktor Frankl came with the idea of imagination therapy. It helped him even very much when he was imagining himself and visualizing himself completely coming out of the prison from concentration camp and hugging his families. And that vision kept him going, and then he started helping other prisoners, fellow prisoners, with guided imagery that in fact keeps you out of that painful experience of reality that you cannot take. So you even go all the way to self-hypnosis, and that is possible to get out get you out of yourself. As I talk to so many Baha'is went through these conditions, the life conditions in Iran after revolution, they explained to me that they did that so well, and they had a vision, different visions. And of course, they had all these prayers and tablets to read, just like meditation, to take them really out of this reality, and it happened. So that imagination, in fact, is the immune system for someone who goes through the pain to come out of the reality. Therefore, it gives birth to new ideas, to masterpieces of art, to masterpieces of theories. The idea of logotherapy, the idea of meaning in life, everything came out of this really giant Viktor Frankl and then Bologna and all of those. When you see that and all the artistic masterpieces in the history. So imagination is in fact the third power that comes to your life if you're able to go through this pain and create. Again, reading all of these doesn't mean that we have to go through suffering and through the pain in order to become a more powerful people, or at least as a Baha'i, I do not really believe in doing that, because the idea is not masochism, not at all, and it has nothing to do with fanaticism either, meaning that masochism, as you know, it's a psychological term saying that you go through the pain by even by force, because you get pleasure out of it. This is absolutely different. You don't go and seek more pain, therefore you become more powerful. Not at all. It's not masochism. And fanaticism, also there are some school of thoughts saying that this is the only way to purify your soul. Therefore you have to go through starvation, getting out of this material world, doing this and that. I mean, so many rituals and ceremonies that bring that pain to you, therefore your soul becomes purified. This is absolutely different than what I'm talking about. It's really about you as a human being living a very peaceful, natural life and enjoying all the material world so well, as much as you can. But if it happened to you that your values as a human being, your beliefs as a human being challenged, you choose that over different advantages in this world. Then you are the winner. And if you have to go through this, and you already have a set, established mission in your mind and heart as a human being, then your look, your eyes are through that. I mean, stare towards that, than all these below the whole idea, and you can stand up all the way there and make it happen. Third, again, you go through this not by choice, but if it happens that you get into the situation out of your control, then you can be sure that by having the mission, an intact sense of self, your imagination can rise all the way up and you can create masterpieces. And you are part of that very, very, very beautiful clock inside of that system inside of that clock. Small, but without you, both cannot function. It looks like I'm out of time. Sorry, I cannot go to the other side of the whole talk, but that's fine.